The science fiction franchise that began with James Cameron's The Terminator has grown increasingly complex with each new installment. What began as a straightforward story about protecting humanity's future leader has evolved into a maze of alternate timelines, paradoxes, and different Terminator models, each with their own set of rules. While the core idea of the franchise is still gripping, the storyline has become harder to follow as they keep adding new layers. Even the most dedicated fans struggle to keep up with all the contradictions across the movies, TV series, and other spin-offs. From questions about how time travel works to the machine's details, the franchise often prioritizes big action over making sense. The latest movie, Terminator Zero, seems to recognize this confusion, suggesting that even the creators are aware of the story's tangled mess. So here are 10 reasons why the Terminator franchise is messy as heck and makes no sense. Number 10. Skynet's creation is always a paradox. The very setup of Skynet's existence and its bizarre plans is an unsolvable paradox. In every timeline, Skynet, the powerful AI, comes into being through technology that's been reverse engineered from Terminators sent back from the future. This creates a bootstrap paradox, where Skynet essentially causes its own creation by sending back tech that led to its development in the first place. In Terminator 2, for example, Miles Dyson's research at the Cyberdyne Systems relies on studying the remains of the first T-800. But without Skynet, that T-800 wouldn't even exist. This circular loop only grows messier with each new story in the franchise. Whether it's Cyberdyne Systems, Legion and Dark Fate, or any other AI, they all seem to come from future tech rather than a natural path of progress. Yet the series never fully explains how this self-starting loop could have kicked off, leaving a big gap in its central story. Number 9. Terminator models aging. Now moving on to number 9, another puzzling inconsistency. Terminator models aging. The fact that Terminator models can age adds yet another layer of confusion to the Terminator series. Terminator Genesis tries to explain why the T-800's skin ages, so Arnold Schwarzenegger's look matches his real-life appearance. But this only leads to more questions. If Terminators are supposed to be perfect infiltration units, why would Skynet design their organic skin to age, potentially making them less effective? This inconsistency gets even stranger in Dark Fate, where the T-800 has not only aged, but is now living as a family man named Carl. The series doesn't fully explain why a high-tech killing machine would need to age at all, or how that aging flesh might affect the machine's metal skeleton underneath. It seems the franchise's need to keep Arnold in his iconic role keeps it stuck in the past, constantly finding new ways to shoehorn him into the story. Number 8. Terminator keeps changing time travel rules. Now moving on to number 8, with another confusing element, which is Terminator keeps changing time travel rules. The way the Terminator series handles time travel seems to change with every new movie. In the first film, it's implied that time is fixed, meaning the past can't be changed. Kyle Reese's mission actually leads to the birth of John Connor, completing a predestined loop. But in Terminator 2, this rule is flipped, as Sarah Connor's actions seem to change the future, preventing Judgment Day from happening in 1997. The later movies only complicate things. Terminator Genesis adds alternate timelines, and the idea that characters can remember events from other timelines, while Dark Fate suggests that stopping one apocalypse just leads to another. These constantly shifting rules make it hard to know what's at stake in any time travel mission, as the consequences seem to shift, depending on what each new story needs. Number 7. John Connor's ever-changing role. Another central point of inconsistency is John Connor's ever-changing role. It's confusing to see how the Terminator series treats John Connor. It has become a big issue as the story progresses. Originally, he's portrayed as humanity's destined savior in the first 2 films, but his importance in the future war keeps shifting. In Terminator 3, he's shown as an unsure leader. Sarah Connor Chronicles gives him a different path of growth. Genesis turns him into an evil hybrid, and Dark Fate takes it even further by eliminating him entirely, suggesting he wasn't as essential to humanity's survival as previously thought. This constant re-imaging of John's role weakens the emotional impact of the original films. The franchise can't seem to decide if he's an irreplaceable hero or just one of many potential leaders. The inconsistency becomes even clearer in Destination Zero. which questions the whole idea of a designed savior. And of course, there's the unforgettable Terminator Salvation version, with Christian Bale's portrayal forever linked to his viral on-set rant. Number 6. Endless last mission plots, the never-ending story. Despite multiple films claiming to showcase the ultimate battle for humanity's future, the Terminator franchise keeps generating new apocalyptic scenarios. In Terminator 2, the mission to prevent Judgment Day appears to succeed, but Terminator 3 quickly reveals that it was merely delayed. Then Dark Fate introduces Legion as a new threat following Skynet's defeat, while Genesis presents yet another variation of the same basic conflict. The franchise seems trapped in a cycle of introducing new threats that function similarly to Skynet, suggesting that humanity's fate is to fight against its own technological creations endlessly. This pattern of constant apocalypse undermines the significance of each so-called final mission. It creates the impression that no matter how many battles are fought, humanity will always face the same struggles. At least Destination Zero acknowledges this repetitive nature, incorporating it into the narrative instead of ignoring the pattern. Number 5. Skynet's overcomplicated plans. Now moving on to point number 5, we encounter yet another puzzling element: Skynet's overcomplicated plans. Skynet's strategies often seem illogical for an artificial intelligence designed for maximum efficiency. Instead of sending multiple Terminators to the same time period to ensure mission success, it frequently chooses to send individual units that can be defeated. The decision to send advanced models like the T-1000 to later time periods, rather than deploying them earlier, seems particularly confusing. After all, using better technology sooner would logically increase the chances of success. This overly complicated approach becomes even clearer in films like Salvation and Genesis, where Skynet devises increasingly elaborate schemes instead of opting for more straightforward and effective methods to attack humans. This tendency toward unnecessary complexity raises questions about its strategic programming, suggesting that it might prioritize dramatic storytelling over logical consistency. Number 4. Survivors always outwit perfect killing machines. There were just lots of human improbability. It is almost obvious that one of the franchise's most consistent logical flaws is how often humans manage to defeat supposedly superior machines with new weapons, even surpassing the original T-800 in every film. While the first movie showed that Terminators could be beaten through resourcefulness and determination, later installments push credibility by having humans continually triumph over increasingly advanced models. For instance, the T-1000 in Terminator 2, despite being nearly invulnerable due to its liquid metal structure, falls victim to relatively simple tactics. This trend carries on throughout the series, with each new unstoppable Terminator being stopped in ways that seem less and less believable. While human creativity is definitely an engaging theme, the ease with which these supposedly perfect killing machines are outsmarted raises doubts about Skynet's ability to design effective assassins. Number 3. Terminator movies keep ignoring their predecessors. The franchise's handling of continuity becomes more problematic with each new film, as it selectively acknowledges or ignores past events, making it tough to follow a single timeline. Terminator 3 downplays much of what Terminator 2 accomplished, while Salvation prevents a future war that barely resembles what was shown in earlier films. Dark Fate goes even further by completely disregarding 3 previous sequels, yet it still falls into many of the same logical pitfalls. This casual attitude toward the established storyline makes it impossible to have a clear timeline or set of rules within the universe. When every new movie feels free to rewrite or overlook what came before, the story turns into a jumble of contradictory versions rather than a unified narrative. Number 2. The T-800 can keep up with more advanced models. This aspect of the franchise raises some interesting questions. Despite being considered outdated, the T-800 consistently shows it can handle its own against newer and supposedly better Terminators. For example, in Genesis, the older T-800 manages to effectively fight both a T-1000 and a T-3000, while in Dark Fate, Carl engages in battle with a Rev-9, which has much more advanced abilities. This brings up the puzzling question of why Skynet continues to create new models if the original design is still so effective. This contradiction becomes even more apparent when you consider the huge technological gap between these models. Suppose a T-800 can physically compete with its successors. In that case, it suggests either that Skynet isn't making much progress in research and development, or that it's simply a convenient plot device to keep Schwarzenegger in the spotlight. Number 1. Skynet and humanity's war seems pointless. The most glaring issue is the never-ending cycle of conflict itself. Regardless of what actions are taken in the past, some form of artificial intelligence always seems ready to threaten humanity. Whether it's Skynet, Legion, or some other version, the basic pattern stays the same. This makes you wonder about the point of sending Terminators or human protectors back in time, if the core conflict can never be avoided. Destination Zero tackles this contradiction head-on, suggesting that technological development creates a kind of inevitability that leads to AI becoming self-aware and turning against humans. While this acknowledgement offers a clever commentary on the repetitive nature of the Terminator franchise, it also emphasizes the bare futility of the time travel missions that drive every story. If humanity is destined to face this conflict no matter what, the whole idea of trying to change the future through time travel starts to seem questionable. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Director's Cut for more great content.